Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday, May 6th, Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Thanks for being here, and if you're joining us online, thank you as well. We're meeting on Wednesday today because yesterday was supposed to be a runoff election day, had we had normal election cycle. So in case you're wondering why we're meeting on Wednesday, that is why. So we'll go ahead and get started with our meeting. We got 3 counselors, I believe, joining us remotely, and so we'll read the roll to make sure they're there. Go ahead, Tom.
Councilmember Starr.
Here.
Staley.
Here.
Brecky. Brecky.
I know she's
here.
There she is.
Erickson.
Here.
Kylie.
I'm here.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
All right. With us this evening to give our invocation is Pastor Ryan Lumley, or Pastor Lumley's with Church at the Gate. He's with us on the phone. So what I'd ask you to do if you're in the chambers here is stand for his invocation, and then we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
Yeah, hey guys, just wanted to say thank you so much for leading our city and just being such a great representative of the people of Sioux Falls. And I've just been watching you all the last few weeks, navigating us through COVID-19, and I've just been amazed with like the outstanding leadership that we have, especially Mayor Paul. I've just felt like you've led with such courage and wisdom. I just feel like we could have just been foolish and just let everything be open and people walk around the city, or we could have just shut down everything. But I feel like you just navigated us so well. So I'm just really proud of our leadership. And it's funny, I have a friend who grew up in Sioux Falls, and now he's in Northern California, and he's watching your Facebook feeds online, and he's watching his mayor, and he's watching you, and he's just like, man, I wish I was in Sioux Falls under that type of leadership. So it's fun that, not just the people in Sioux Falls are taking notice of Mayor Paul's leadership, but the nation, there's people in the nation that are. So I thought that was really cool. Just a little bit about me. I'm actually from central Minnesota. My wife and I grew up there. And it kind of takes a lot for a person to leave those lakes and those trees to come down to the prairie. But we couldn't find any jobs after graduating college in 2007. That recession was about to hit in 2009. And so Wells Fargo and Sioux Falls came knocking, and we found our first jobs in Sioux Falls and didn't know if we would stay very long or not, but it didn't take us long to find out that this city on the prairie is an amazing place to live. It's an amazing place for families. You guys all know that. But there's just, ever since we've been here, we've just found favor and blessing. And I think, there's family after family that can attest to that. One thing that really stands out in my head as our city is just this place where people get to flourish and prosper is walking into Shields, like near Christmas time, and I hear like Christian music playing on the radio, and I'm like, man, what city allows God to work like that? So yeah, we're blessed. I mean, our city's blessed, and it's no doubt that the hand of God is on our city, but also I know that it's blessed because sacrificial leaders like you all, you guys are making decisions for our cities, not just with your minds, but with your hearts too, and your day-to-day decisions are, it might seem insignificant, but they really matter. You're enabling our city to prosper and our people to flourish. And I'm just thankful for you all and for all your leadership and for just taking the time to be guided and led with wisdom. And so let me pray, and then you guys can go with the Pledge of Allegiance. So I just thank you, God, for our government here in Sioux Falls, for our leadership team that you've placed together. God, Mayor Paul and the city council there. God, we're so blessed to have them and their leadership and their wisdom, God, and that they bring their hearts and they bring their minds to the table, Lord God. They bring all their strength to the table, and so I thank you for that. God, I thank you also that the government is on your shoulder, And so even when it feels heavy and that burden of just having to lead 200,000 people in a city, God, I thank you that you say your burden is easy and your yoke is light, your burden is easy. And I thank you that you also say that when the righteous lead, that the people rejoice. And so I thank you for a city that's just rejoicing over this leadership, and we thank you for them. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Pastor Lumley. We will move on to
You're welcome.
our next item, item number 4, which is our consent agenda. Look for any changes or motions there.
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Starr.
yes, thank you. I'd like to pull items under the contracts, item number 15, 16, and 22.
All right. Any other changes, council?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion to approve by Counselor Erickson, seconded by Counselor Sale. Any other discussion on that?
Has left the meeting.
We'll take a vote.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Move on to item number 20, our regular agenda. Look for any changes or motions to that.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion approved by Counselor Erickson, seconded by Sale. Discussion on that one, council? All right, we'll take a vote on it, please.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. We're at the general public input portion of tonight's agenda, and as a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person, and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on in the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes, unless the item is being presented for final adoption, in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. And at this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward for general public input. Tom, please note our time right now is 7:08. Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, I'm John Cunningham, 4904 South Oxbow, Sioux Falls. Recently, I informed the Board of Ethics of an action by a councilor that I believe was unethical. I'll not discuss this substance. This is not the venue to do so. But I'm very concerned about 2 items in the process, of which I develop a passion in my career in public service. Those are ethics and customer service. I developed that passion from my education, a master's in public administration from Harvard, and from my service in Prince William County, Virginia, which is actually obsessed with customer service. In filling out the form, I listed on the form section 35.028, applying to officers and employees believing that counselors are officers. Apparently, the proper section was 35.053, referencing city officials, defined as counselors and mayor. Based on the distinction between officers and officials, the Board of Ethics determined they did not have jurisdiction. That is false. The Board of Ethics has jurisdiction over all sections of the code and all unethical activities. The Board of Ethics' mission should be to ensure a continued high level of ethical standard and conduct by city officials and staff. Instead, they felt their primary mission was to demand rigorous and strict adherence to minor technical details. Only secondarily will they consider the actual ethics at issue. They see ethics as their secondary, not primary mission. Rather than amending the action on their own or asking me to amend it, which I believe is clearly within their authority, they simply threw it out. Rather than going out of their way to ensure ethical conduct, the board went out of their way to avoid it, which I believe does not display a high standard of ethics within the board. Also, the board's action does not reflect the customer service values I've seen elsewhere in the city. I've had dealings with Mark Cotter in Public Works and various people in parks, mostly with a bike trail, and found their customer service to be exemplary, and you should be proud. I will also state, without fear of being wrong, that if you were to take plans for a structure to the building permit office and the plans were deficient in any way, that official would help you to correct the deficiency. A larger joist, more setback, whatever is required, that would help you fix it. The official would not just stamp it rejected and tell you to go home, study the building code, fix the application, and then return. If they took that approach, the person would likely be fired immediately and should be. Yet that is exactly the approach your Board of Ethics took. If a citizen has knowledge of an action by a city official or employee that appears unethical, their only responsibility should be to bring it to the attention of the Board of Ethics, showing who, where, when, and how of the action. The board's effort to duck the issue will force me to resubmit it, dragging not just me, but the defendant and the entire board through it a second time. It could have been done discreetly without all this attention. Avoiding the issue was a disservice to everyone.
Thank you, John.
Time is up. You
It
have heard
is,
the bad
correct.
news, and next week I will
Thanks,
bring
John.
forward
Appreciate
positive suggestions.
Good evening.
Good evening. Catherine Riffle. I'm an advocate for the homeless and displaced persons and for this city here of Sioux Falls. First, I want to say thank you for being compassionate for me last time I was here. And it's just that there's been 3 other deaths downtown that have nothing to do with the virus. And where I left off before the virus came is to possibly start holding people accountable for the situation downtown. Some of the other tribal councils and a few other people that I work with and communicate with would like for me to have a large meeting in September, and that's when we will decide the next step we're going to take. So, if I may suggest that since we're working with this virus out here and we're working with the homeless and the people, putting them in the motels, et cetera, and of course there was a situation that backfired. I didn't know about it until later, but I think the people are trying to rectify it. I don't want to, put some bad names out there to cause trouble. So anyway, if we could just find a way to work continuingly while we're working with this virus to keep people safe, we should have groups, possibly hospital, Red Cross or somebody, I don't know who you want to call, but if they could go down and just talk with the people downtown, make them feel a little bit more comfortable while checking them out, and then find out how we can get them into a sheltered situation. One of the churches has asked me to come on board and do what I'm doing on the streets, plus helping out their clients. And so I have been thinking strongly about that. Everything I've done in my whole life has been volunteer. And so not that I would want a church to pay me, because I've been a secretary to other church and all, and I do not accept money for being in a churches. I do want to get a paying job, and I am worth it. And so I think after we get past this virus and we get the street people situation passed, maybe I can pull on a job here with international management. So that's where I'm at. Thank you, and thank you for y'all doing so good. I have had some time to myself, and I can see where it's working, and you are doing a good job with this virus and all. And when I was a kid, we knew about it from our parents, but it was a matter of time, and here it is. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt, and I've been in good health, and I've been trying to help others. So you have a good night, stay warm and safe.
Thanks, Catherine.
Right now.
Anyone else this evening? Good evening.
Greetings. I'm David Zokaitis, and I'm here with gracious help from Sierra to talk about COVID and some hidden consequences. Now, during a pandemic, usually what people try to do is minimize pain and suffering and to maximize health and wealth. So what you would do is to rely on science, not politics quite so much, quarantines, face masks, that kind of thing. But that's not quite what we did in this country to start things off. Instead, the president and his friends were really slow to respond, not much testing, we did a big economic shutdown. I don't know what happened to our constitutional right to due process of law, and there was a whole lot of media coverage. Here's some frightening statistics I found. A quoted mortality rate of freaking 6% in China. Nasty, nasty. Now, when you think about death rates, there's 4 different statistics that are very different, and if you get them mixed up, you're going to have very bad ideas of what's going on in the world. Infection rate, case rate, hospitalization rate, and ventilator rate. Very different. Now, when you look at diseases, you need a standard for comparison, and the COVID mortality rate is awfully close to the flu mortality rate. All right, that means that maybe we're overreacting. And here's a plot of the seasonality of flus. It's really quite short-lived, and then it's over. If you know that a recession is coming, you can sure make a lot of money from it. Buy high, or sell high and buy low. And there's some other very suspicious things going on with this particular pandemic, like the payroll protection program that's designed for poor people but helps rich people, and hospital supplies disappearing from the feds. There's a story from the LA Times about that. Nasty stuff. Oops. Now, really, when you think about health and vitality, this slide is really more important than the rest of them. Because, you know, COVID is sensational, but it's not the biggest cause of death in this country. Unhealthy living is what gets most of us. So if we're going to focus on keeping people safe, we should focus on living better and living more healthily. And here's a good way to live a little healthier. Enjoy nature, get some peace, relax, and don't worry quite so much. And with that, good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Good evening.
Stephen Ciano. I want to complain, first of all. I had to pedal down here on a bicycle a few miles because the bus by me, number 9, is not running right now. And there's been never any, I do have physical as well as mental problems and a bad foot on top of that, but I can do it. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, huh? Well, I've been struggling, and you've seen me in the past with several issues. I hope that you're going to fix that problem with the transportation, as well as I can't any longer use the library lately, and there's no good reason for this. You're using scare tactics with this that don't belong. They're not commensurate with the danger, as my predecessor just spoke of, from the virus. There's been flus, there's been cars, there's all kinds of dangers out there. We can't just, oh, the sky is falling. No, we can't do that. And our mayor has said that people have referred to his tactics as likened him to real public figures such as Hitler and Mussolini. Well, I would say, well, there's also some possible parallels in the fictional world, such as similarity with a name from the, in the movie Total Recall, Cohagen is a similarity. He's the arch villain in that. And that's a bit of a play on words. I hope we can have a little fun with that perhaps as well, as long as some people might perceive this mayor as the Grinch who stole Easter. It was totally unnecessary. People could have celebrated Easter. So people might refer to him as Mr. Grinch.
Thank you. Good evening.
Jim Stenga. I don't know if anybody's out driving around last night, but I was. Just amazing how many people were at restaurants last night. They were just overflowing. The parking lots were so full by the restaurants I went by, it was just like nothing happened. It almost tells you what we got to do tomorrow is we got to let the restaurants open up and we got to get back to business. It pretty much showed you last night, and I could name names on where I drove by and they were full. There were lines out the door. One thing that I realize is, and the people, is there is an election coming up, city council election. And I know people probably really haven't thought about it, but there's a difference between two candidates. I guess I've been coming down to these city council meetings probably for about almost 17, 18 years. One thing that I've realized out of every single mayor and every single council member is that we want sheep. We absolutely do not want people to know what's going on in this city. Because why? Because then they'll ask questions. That's the hard part for the mayor and city council, is one, to ask questions and to be able to deal with the answers, be able to really go into the answers. We got a parking ramp that you can just figure that one out. That's not a hard one to figure. But when you have corrupt city people that are going and backing one candidate, there's always one reason why that happens. See, we have one candidate that is here for the people. We got a mayor and some of the city council that are backing the other candidate running against this one. Why would that be happening? Because they want sheep. They want a yes boy. They want another rubber stamper. And how do you get that rubber stamper? You make sure they have a lot of money behind them. And I know, Mayor, you're not listening because you're not even looking, because I brought up your name.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening?
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Will Anderson, Sioux Falls Tenants Union. We're calling on you for a third time to issue a moratorium on evictions for non-payment. I want to refer again to our April 25th email that only Councilor Staley had the courtesy to reply to, outlining the legal reasons why we believe your council's opinion on the matter is incorrect. I am not a lawyer, but I am literate. I have read and reread the statutes and the city charter, and in conference with our own attorney and others, we remain steadfast in our opinion that you have the legal jurisdiction to act, which begs the question why you won't. How many of you rent your home? Show of hands. Could that be the reason? Or does it, as we have asserted from the beginning, come down to the issue of rental licenses? You issue them, the charter requires them. Chapter 150, section 175 says we require the permit and registration of rental units to, quote, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of the city. So we are again calling on you to use your power to regulate that license to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the 70,000 citizens of the city who do not own their own home during this unprecedented public health crisis. So why won't you act? As the Argus noted in an article from June 12, 2017, as many as 70% of rentals in Sioux Falls were out of compliance with city code. In trying to find updated information, I reached out to the city licensing office. They passed me along to Matt Tobias, who the article cites, and he was able to provide me a list. That list, however, is wildly inaccurate. By your count, we have nearly 90,000 licensed rentals in our city, a gross miscount of the approximately 30,000 units in Sioux Falls. There were numerous small apartments listed as having 248 units each, and some massive properties were listed as having no units at all. Have we improved from our 70% non-compliance in 3 years? Mr. Tobias was helpful, but he could not say, and it seems doubtful to me since you took the teeth out of the registration. What is the penalty for renting without a license? I understand that the city is understaffed and that code violations are policed by a small pool of public servants who spend most of their time chasing down folks over complaints about unmowed grass or vehicles parked illegally. But the $25 per unit fee that you removed from the original ordinance could have generated $750,000 in annual revenue for the city. That's enough for 12 salaries at $60,000, good jobs for city employees who could handle property inspection and legitimate tenant concerns about habitable and unsafe housing. Has your inaction and failure to regulate rentals, as the charter requires, rendered you powerless in this moment? Or are you choosing not to act because it would expose some failure to adhere to the city charter? You have an obligation to regulate this market, as you say, to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of our city. Even with a federal moratorium on HUD properties, our local eviction numbers are up 20% since COVID began. We are once again urging you to use the power we elected you to wield to issue a moratorium on evictions for non-payment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Will.
Sierra Bruce Starr, Sioux Falls. I think there's a city ordinance. I gotta find it. So we had some problems with Whittier neighborhood doing a house remodeling and degutting without permits. And then when I went over there, then they wanted to go get permits on Saturday through the computer there. Whittier neighborhood thought that code enforcement was on furlough. So I will be back over there and I will be blasting them back on social media. They need to get those permits. There is an ordinance that they have to visibly put that permit, either in a window or something visible. Because what's happening is some people have permits, they don't see those permits, they're calling me, and then I go over there and I call code enforcement and they have permits for that. There's a code of ordinance that you have to have that permit visible in that place here. So out of 11, there were 4 of them that didn't have permits. And I'm talking about degutting people's house on top of the roofs. I mean, doing the whole 9 yards, the electricity, the plumbing, everything. And they have to have those permits. Because without those permits, they're cheating the city with revenue here. So we're going to talk about journalism here. So Joe Sneeby has been here for many, many, many years doing our news story coverages here. And next week, he's going into furlough. And we need to acknowledge our media and our journalists. He's here every week, countless hours, doing and catching up on our local politics here. Some people might not like what Joe puts in the newspaper. Some people do like it. But Joe's sitting here and doing our news story coverages every Tuesday. Before Joe came, there was a high turnover for a while, and then now Joe's been here for a long time now, and hopefully he stays here. But we need to recognize those journalists here for that. One more other thing is I just got a hold of a captain here with the police department. And I'm not going to say specifically what's going to happen here, but just because we have COVID-19 doesn't mean that investigations need to be on the back burner here. I told Joe after the end of May, I'll be coming up with some evidence here on the police department and illegal massaging. But we cannot be putting investigations on the back burner because of COVID here. I mean, the police has to take initiative on these complaints here. If it's a misdemeanor 1, I don't care if it's a misdemeanor 1 offense or a class 2. They need to do it because we're going to be with this COVID situation for months ahead of time. So I wanted to point that out too as well.
All right, thank you. Anyone else this evening? Please come forward. Good evening.
Hi, Amy Ibis. Live here in Sioux Falls. I actually own Vantis Commercial Real Estate. We manage a small portfolio of rental housing. I want to first thank you and the One Sioux Falls Fund and the committee that put that together. I would say about 10% of my tenants qualified for it, and all tenants except for 1 paid the remainder of the rent that was due. The other one we're just working with. No late fees, no penalties, just giving them time to figure out how they're going to get it paid. Evictions are put in place for the protection of the property and the safety of other tenants. You can be evicted for not just paying, but for criminal activity. destroying the property, or affecting the other tenant's right to quiet enjoyment. An eviction moratorium does not make sense to me right now. Although I do not have the exact number, but I do think if there are 40 to 50,000 actual rental units, there's probably closer to 70. I am told right now that there's approximately 11 current evictions. That equates to less than a fraction of 1%. I do not think Sioux Falls has a problem. We need to understand the actual circumstances of those evictions that are in place right now. They could be for criminal activity, and if it is for non-payment, I'm guessing it could be for non-payment that took place way before March. I also don't have a statistic on this, but I do believe landlords are working with tenants that are being affected by the COVID virus. They do not want to evict good tenants. We want to provide safe housing, and we want to keep our tenants. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Anyone else this evening for public input? All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to our next item, please.
Mayor, the next items were the...
Oh, hi. Come on up.
My name is Amy Miller, and I own Charisma Property Management, a rental company here in Sioux Falls. And I actually am a renter. We sold our house last summer, and I am a renter, so I see the need with rents going on. There's a couple things I wanted to address. I appreciate William and his looking out for the residents of the community. I believe that he's very well intended, but I don't think a rent moratorium has been thought through very well, because let's just say a landlord can get a mortgage deferred down the road. Those residents need water, they need electricity, they need air conditioning and heat in the peak seasons. And how are we going to, with no income coming in, how can I fix that the refrigerator where the compressor went out? How am I going to put a new air conditioner in that went out when I don't have any money coming in? And so I understand, you know, our tenants, we've had plenty of tenants take the one fund, and there was also comments made that landlords are evicting. Our policy is, if we're going to evict a tenant, we will not take Minnehaha funding. We will not take one fund. If we're evicting a tenant, we're evicting a tenant. We're not taking the money, and I believe that that's the practice of most landlords here in Sioux Falls, at least in the Multi-Housing Association, the people that I deal with. And I just want to be clear that our goal is to provide good quality housing for people to the best of our ability. You know, when we're talking about people being evicted, you know, numbers are really important. Is it, you know, the comment was made earlier when I was at the meeting earlier that people are being evicted off the one fund. Is it one landlord doing it? Is it 10 landlords doing it? Because those numbers are important to us, because in industry, we want to know who those landlords are so we can reach out to them and educate them so that it doesn't put a bad mark on landlords that are trying to serve tenants. And as far as evictions go, I am one of the landlords that have been evicting tenants, but they were going on before the COVID-19 hit. We took over a 60-unit complex that was full of drugs, that was full of bugs, that had mice, that had bed bugs, that had cockroaches. And out of the 60 units, I have 30 vacant units because I've had to evict tenants that weren't paying rent, that were bringing drugs into the property, because I want people to live there to be safe. We've got children that live there. And so the evictions that are happening to people that don't want to take that rent, that don't want to take that help. When somebody calls and they have an issue paying their rent, the first number we contact is Minnehaha County, Community Outreach, St. Vincent de Paul, the Salvation Army. We will always work with tenants as landlords, but it's hard when a tenant doesn't respond to us. And so we just ask that the rent moratorium does not get put in place, because we need to be able to serve our tenants. We need to provide daily services for them, so when that pipe is leaking, we can fix it.
Thanks, Amy. All right, any more public input for tonight? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Tom?
Mayor, the next items are the pulled items from the consent agenda, contracts and agreements number 6, sub-items 15 from Health Meals for Isolation Sites Agreement. The vendor is Interstate House of Pancakes Incorporated, doing business as Roll and Pin. The amount is to establish pricing. Item 16, sub-item 16, Fire and Police Facility Use Agreement with the University of Sioux Falls, not to exceed $50,000. And item 22, Health Security Guard Services Agreement with Signal 88 Security, $21 per hour.
All right, Councilor Starr.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself as an employee at USF.
Okay. Are we want to vote on all these together? Is that all right, Councilor Starr? Okay.
Actually, ask Councilor Staley, because I think she only needs to recuse herself from the one after I looked at it. Because the other two, we got clarification this afternoon. The only one was the contract with the University of Sioux Falls that she should probably recuse herself from. Yeah, 16. So if we can do 16 separate from
Okay.
15 and 22 when she
Got
gets
it.
back. So if you
Got
don't
it. We'll
mind, if we'll
vote on,
skip to 16.
we'll do item 16 first here then, and then we'll call you back, Counselor.
Thank you. I wanted to pull this from the consent agenda, not only because of Counselor Staley needing to recuse herself, but to point out the great thing that our city's doing by providing housing for our first responders or in an alternative living quarters during this epidemic time or pandemic time. It's a great contract that the mayor's negotiated with the University of Sioux Falls. They're only charging us, as we were told this afternoon, for electricity and hard costs, so they're not actually charging us to rent the facility to use their dorms. So I'd like to thank them publicly as well as moving this forward.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great partnership with USF there. And yeah, any other discussion on that? All right, can I get a motion to approve that then, Counselor?
I would move to approve.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion to approve item 16, seconded by Counselor Sale. Any discussion, Council? All right, we'll vote on that one, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley? Recused. Brecky? 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 Erickson?
Yes.
Yes.
Brecky's yes. Erickson's yes. Kylie?
Yeah.
Heitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
All right, pretty sure that was 7-0.
Are you guys, can you guys still hear me?
We sure can.
Am I still in? Because okay, I've got it off of mute, but it wasn't taking my vote, so sorry about that.
We got you. We'll move on to items 15 and 22 then, and we'll vote on those together. Counselor Starr.
Yes, just quickly, again, this afternoon at the informational, we spent some time with the health department really going through a COVID update and really explained these two items are actually for separate housing. So I wanted to get clarification that it was that the food is not being provided to the employees that are and first responders that are staying at the University of Sioux Falls or potentially could be, and that the security was also separate from that item. So that's what I have to say.
That's correct. You want to make a motion on those, Counselor?
I would. I'd move to approve items 15 and 22, or sub items 15 and 22.
All right.
Second, Sale.
Seconded by Sale on that. Any discussion on the council on those? All right, we'll take a vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Heitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
All right, those pass 8-0. We'll move on to our next item.
Next item is item 22, new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 405 North Kiwanis Avenue with conditional use permit 11735-2020 being approved on April 1st, 2020, pending final inspections per building services. Item 23, request to include video lottery terminals with the new 2020-21 retail malt beverage South Dakota farm wine license for Golden Coin Casino, 405 North Kiwanis Avenue with conditional use permit 11735-2020 being approved on April 1st, 2020, pending final inspections per building services. Item 24, transfer of 2020 retail liquor license from Pancakes and More Incorporated, Original Pancake House, 2713 West 41st Street to New Ritual LLC, the Hello High, 120 South Phillips Avenue, CUP not required, pending final inspections per building services. Item 25, special one-day malt beverages and special one-day wine licenses for downtown Sioux Falls to be operated at phases 1 and 2 of downtown Riverfront from 6th Street to south of 8th Street, including Raven Industries, Riverfront, and parking lot located at 205 East 6th Street to include the grassy area between Phase 1 River Greenway and the Sharapa Place parking lot north to 6th Street and south to Sharapa Place for Riverfest on August 15, 2020. And item 26, special one-day malt beverage and special one-day wine licenses for downtown Sioux Falls to be operated at 8th and Railroad Center parking lot 401 East 8th Street for East Bank block parties on July 3rd, August 7th, and September 4th, 2020.
Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening, Jamie Palmer with licensing. I'm here to answer any questions that you have on items 22 through 24, and as well, and I also need to request a motion to defer items 25 and 26 until June 3rd. That's at the request of the applicant. They just want to give themselves a little more time to figure out with this COVID requirements and such going forward. So,
Yep. Sounds good. Anyone from the public wish to speak on any of these items here? All right, councilors, do you have any questions for Jamie? What we'll do is we'll take a motion for 22 to 24, and then we'll vote separately to defer 25 and 26.
I'll move approval of 22 through 24.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion by Erickson, seconded by Sale on that. Any discussion on the council on those? All right, we'll take a vote on those, please.
Council members Starr? Yes. Staley?
yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
All right, those items pass 8-0. Look for a motion to defer items 25 and 26 till June 3.
I'll move that motion.
Second, Nitzert.
You're on. Motion by Erickson, seconded by Nitzert on that. Any discussion, council, on that? All right, we'll vote on that, please.
Council members Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. We'll move to item 27, please.
Item 27, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 5605 Southwest Wind Avenue from the RS Single Family Residential Suburban Districts to the RD1 Twin Home Duplex Residential Suburban District, number 11816-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
Hi, Jason.
Jason Beaver representing Planning and Development Services. This is an application and the owner is Jeff Shutkowski. It's located north of East 69th Street and east of Southeastern Avenue, just northeast of the roundabout. It's about 0.74 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing 3 twin homes that'll back up to Southeastern Avenue.
All right, thanks, Jason. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this item?
Move approval, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
All right, motion to approve this by Councilor Erickson and seconded by Sale. Any discussion, council, on it? All right, we will vote on it, please.
Council members Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That passes 8-0. Item 28.
Item 28, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property located at 411 West 12th Street from the RT2 Townhome Residential Traditional District to the C2 Commercial Neighborhood and Streetcar District, number 11784-2020, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval 4-0.
The applicant here is Paul Carlson. The owner is Julene Edwards. It's located at 411 West 12th Street, just west of Minnesota Avenue on 12th. It's roughly 0.26 acres in size. The purpose of this rezoning is the applicant is looking at constructing a roughly 3,000 square foot retail building on the first floor, and then they're looking at constructing two bedroom apartment units on the second level.
All right, thank you, Jason. Anyone from the public here to speak on this item? All right, councilors, you got any questions for Jason on this one?
Move approval, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
Okay, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Councilor Sale. Discussion, council? All right, we'll take a vote on this, please.
Council members Starr? Yes. Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Next item, please.
Next item, item 29, notice of transfer of appropriations on the memorandum dated April 30th, 2020.
All right, and we have one item after the agenda deadline, item 30.
Item 30, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, extending the effective date of Resolution 48-20, temporarily reducing transit services due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Good evening, Sam.
Evening. Sam Trebilcock, representing Planning and Development Services. For the last few weeks, we've been running Sioux Area Metro at about half services. You might remember that as we came through. What we're asking for tonight is to extend that to May 30th. The reasons for that is essentially the situation has remained the same. Demand is still at about 76% reduction in services from our normal services for fixed route. Paratransit's about 87% reduction. Right now, about 36% of our workforce is a vulnerable workforce, over 65, underlying health conditions. So that still remains the same. So really, again, what we're looking for is to extend that effective date out to May 30th. There's one change from the last time. We're asking for the discretion for the mayor to be able to bring on additional services if demand does warrant, and as things do hopefully improve during that time. So that, we think that gives us a little bit of leeway, but certainly what we're looking for is to be able to be conservative in our approach during this time. And we really think it's important, knowing that the demand is low. One of the articles I just read today was nationally about, they asked the public, are you ready to go back and ride the bus? And 77% of the public is not ready to go back and ride the bus yet. And that's kind of a national figure, but that kind of relates pretty closely to what we see in the reduction of our services. So we think it's important to look at that and maintain that. Again, just for, to refresh your memory on the services that we're providing, routes 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 will still be operating as they have been for the last few weeks, and they'll run hourly. We're maintaining that suspension of services for routes 1, 2, 5, 9, and 11, and 19. The new time schedule is out there on our website, and there's no evening service during that time. Paratransit remains the same service boundaries, so that maintains the same service area that fixed route does during that time. One of the things that we do have is an on-demand service. Right now that service is providing about 12 to 20 rides a day. They call the day before and ask for that service. We could see as if there's additional demand that you might be able to expand that service, especially as maybe some drivers are able to come back. That might be the first thing you try to expand. With that, I would take any of your questions.
All right, appreciate it, Sam. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item tonight?
Yeah, Stephen Ciano. When this started, the cutting out the number 9 bus, I called into the downtown depot and I asked about such special arrangements as I just again heard alluded to evidently, and I was told, no, you're on your own. That was the attitude, and thus I had to got to take a bike from 26th and Sycamore to 12th Street. So it's about a mile, no matter what shape I might happen to be in. I don't know why the 9, the South Hilltop bus is cut out and there's no arrangements otherwise. When I was here last time also, I had no bus back, and when I stay late, there is never a bus back. So that's great inconvenience to me. If I'm limited physically and getting around on a bicycle, I'm going to have to upgrade my transportation. But in the meanwhile, if I don't want to do that, then I don't have this available. So I'd like some kind of answer. if such arrangements, maybe somebody made a mistake, could be made, and also about addressing, being able to address this council, because the buses are cut short even on a regular basis before many of these meetings are over. So therein lies, there's been a lot of times that I've wanted to stay and say something, and either I ran out just after saying something and forgot something because I was in a hurry. This impedes. I should, as a disabled veteran, get special accommodations, I would think. And yet there's been none made. And with the transit service, that applies as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this? All right, councilors, do you have questions for Sam on this? Councilor Starr?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sam, has there been a time where, in the last couple of weeks, where the on-demand is booked or full, that there isn't any availability for people to call the on-demand service?
Not since our first day. We had what I would consider kind of a rough start to the on-demand services because we were same day, that first day, because of the way we rolled it out. And we had to kind of figure it out too. And we needed to, again, these are for essential trips. So we're doing it for work and medical and those kind of trips. And we needed to also match in with the drivers that we had available. But we've since been able to work it out pretty well. Mainly they're being used for medical and some work trips.
With the number of routes that have been cut back and things, do we have an idea of the cost savings or balancing that with the on-demand? Is there a savings in this short amount of time, or is it?
You know, I mean, really, we're not getting any savings to the workforce because one of the things I think it's really important to note is that we're still paying the drivers and we're paying their benefits when no one's being laid off as a part of this at all. And you might think, okay, how is the city paying people for, not working? In this case, that's something that I think is really important for us to be looking at to maintain them, and we also received an FTA grant as part of the stimulus money in the amount of $7.7 million. So we think it's really important that the first part of that go to the drivers that make the system work.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Councilor Staley.
Well, first of all, I wanted to read an email from Kathy Brechtelsbauer. Tom, do you have that to put up? If not, I'll just go up there. And I believe that we all received this. Dear City Councilors, she writes, I'm very concerned about tonight's agenda item, canceling bus service on routes 1, 2, 5, 9, 11, and 19 for the rest of the month. Route 1 goes to the VA. Routes 2 and 5 go to the other two hospitals. Cutting routes 5 and 19 would take bus service from areas of the city where some lower income workers live. We who have internet and flexible job situations surely have an obligation to protect critical services for those less fortunate. And thank you, Kathy, for caring. She didn't want to come tonight because of her health concerns, and she actually said to me, would there be an option for me to call in? And I said, we don't have that right now. So the next best thing is this, my giving her input. But right now, I have to say this seems a bit contradictory. Just on the eve of our opening up things for the business community, and we're letting people gather together, we're trying to encourage people to go back to work, and then we're going to be voting on this for the next month to keep our services, the bus services, scaled back. I've got a concern about that. And so what I was wanting to do, and I want to make an amendment that I would like to on section 1, I'd like to amend that, and I hope our city attorney isn't going to think this is a huge cavity being filled with a huge filling here, but the effective immediately upon passage and publication of this resolution and continuing until 11:15.
Counselor?
Yes.
I think we first have to have a motion on the floor, and then you can amend, and then you can offer
But
your
don't I have to say
amendment.
what what the amendment?
You will, but let's get an amendment, a motion to
Move to
approve
approve
this.
Erickson.
Okay. All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Sale, and now you can talk about the
Okay,
amendment.
now,
Go for
so,
it.
yeah, I was going to say that I'd like to maybe, to me, it would be reasonable to say, I would like to change the effective date instead of May 30th, which to me is, that's too long. I'd like to change it to May 12th, which is next week, and we would have a week to evaluate this. So that's my amendment.
All right, motion to amend per that by Staley, seconded by Starr, changing the 30th to the 12th. Any discussion on the council on that? Councilor Starr?
Yep, I understand where we're trying to head with this, and again, it's, if we're really looking at opening things back up, the workforce has to have a chance to get there, and then I balance that with the, being able to have drivers that are available and to keep them safe as well, and to expose them. So by limiting the number of routes and balancing the employees, I agree that maybe the 30th is too long, but I don't know if the 12th is. So I guess we're kind of at that spot where we're in new territory, whatever we do. I just think we've got to be available, and if the on-demand rides aren't there or are just for essential things like work and medical things, there's still the other things that people use public transit for, whether it's just getting to the grocery store and back or some other things that wouldn't necessarily be deemed essential. So at least trying to take a swing at shortening the amount of time. You know, the other opportunity is that we do give the mayor in this resolution the flexibility to call it back early if the demand is there. So I just talked in a whole circle. That's what I do.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think Jim David had indicated that the 12th, it wouldn't be correct to have it on the 12th. It's supposed to be the day after, 13th. Tom, would that be?
Counselor, I would recommend at least the 14th, because typically we need 2 days to publish in the Argus. We kind of worked something out for tomorrow's ordinance, and that's why we're having the special meeting early in the morning. So I would recommend the 14th.
And let me say that I wouldn't mind if someone made it, 2 weeks from now. To me, I've got a problem with that date of the 30th. I think that's too long. And I think it's going to reassure the community that, we're trying to encourage people to get out and do what they need to do. We're doing this with the restaurants, the malls opening. We want people to go back to work. So I would, do I need to amend that?
Could I make could I just clarify? Actually, the 15th would be the earliest. I'm sorry.
Do I hear a 15? Okay,
I think we can call that a substitute motion then, from yours to the 15th.
do I need another second?
And Councilor Starr, will you second that substitute motion? Okay. Councilor Erickson?
Just a couple questions. I understand the concern of extending it to the 30th. My question for Sam or Stacy or the mayor is, if it is extended to the 30th and we see a higher demand, can it be open sooner?
Would we be open to it if the mayor, for instance, expanded it, or?
He directed you and said, hey, you know what, let's open it up on the 15th. Would that be sufficient?
Yeah, possibly, as we're able to bring back some drivers are probably going to come back after the governor's order expires.
Okay, so then my other question is you said everyone's still getting paid, but they're not working.
Correct, because there's some vulnerable drivers. Correct.
Vulnerable drivers. So we'd either have to hire younger people or something to get it to work.
And there's also other, I should mention that, just last week we had a couple riders that tested positive. That takes drivers out, a couple of them, in a couple of different cases. It's those kind of things that we're looking for a little bit of flexibility on. Obviously, we need to have drivers to drive the buses to provide the services. So that's why this is kind of an important part
Okay.
two. I'd also mention the on-demand services is something that we can ramp up as some drivers come back. As this gentleman was just talking about, could additional services be provided on demand to kind of help with that? That's part of what Kathy was talking about. We provide services to the VA with on-demand right now. That's provided. Route 19 is provided for a person up to Walmart to get to work. That is provided. So we're providing that service. Maybe it could be, and hopefully it can be ramped up as we get more drivers back. So that's why we're looking for some flexibility for the mayor.
Another follow-up, if I can. If this passes to the 15th, then Tom or Stacy, when would it need to be reviewed again on the 12th? Since that's our next city council meeting.
Yes.
And then it could be extended again at that point.
Yeah, barring a special meeting, but yeah, I mean, it would have to be next Tuesday.
I don't see that it's a huge deal that we just extend it to the 15th. I am okay with that. I just don't want to create a bunch of uncertainty in a situation too with it. If the on-demand is there and the rides are still able to occur for those people that want it, then I'm okay with that. But I do see some issues if we're not providing it to the VA and somebody needs health care. Is that an option? I mean, I guess I just want to make sure that there's not unmet medical needs as well because they don't have a way to get there.
So again, they do, and we are providing that even now. So somebody has called in for a ride to the VA for the medical trips, and they're getting that. That's one of those essential trips that we are able to provide with the workforce that we have now. We would expect that we would be able to provide more as some drivers start coming back.
When do you see those drivers coming back, Sam?
Well, again, some of those would come back after the mayor's or the governor's order. Some probably will come back, what is that, the 12th, the 11th?
The 11th, but it could be extended. Let's remember that she could extend it.
Right, so we don't know that, which is another reason we're looking for some flexibility in this, because there are a lot of unknowns coming.
So not to go down a bunny trail, I'm sorry. When can those folks that were exposed because a rider had COVID and they were exposed, and so I'm the driver and now I have to stay home, when are they able to come back? I mean, this is all timing because if there's not drivers, what do we do?
Yeah, it was, it's 14 days. I think it was, the first set was about 14 days ago. The second set, I'm not sure exactly what was recommended by the Department of Health there because they weren't quite in the same proximity. So I'd have to find that out from Surrey Metro. But yeah, so it is. There's always, there's a lot of situations where we thought we were going to have a situation with one of the office workers in the paratransit office who was getting tested. Well, if that person would have tested positive, everybody would have been out. So it's those kind of flexibilities we're looking for in case.
Right, Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any questions on the phone for Sam while we have him here? All right, Councilor Staley.
Now, my understanding on the governor's proclamation was that if you were over 65, you could still go out if you had essential work to do. I mean, those 65-year-olds could still go to their jobs.
Well, what we've interpreted that to be is that if somebody, that those are the first set of drivers that we want to make sure are protected. So we've, as a part of this, said those are the first set of drivers we want to protect and keep them at home so that they remain healthy for the right time to come back.
Well, and I wasn't aware they were, when we tell the public that we're paying those people, because I was thinking part of it, like Councilor Starr was talking about, the financial crunch. So it sounds like financially, we can handle staffing the buses.
Correct.
Yeah,
Again,
we already are staffing them, but we're not. We're paying for that, but we're not.
right. We're paying for 40 hours.
So I mean, we're talking, and again, we don't really know what the influx is going to be. We're turning the faucet on now. We're turning on. Tomorrow we're going to be turning that faucet on, And so to say we're going to be keeping the lid on this part and turning the faucet on this part, I just think it's counteractive in my opinion. So I'd be very comfortable voting for this till the 15th. That's just my perspective.
Any other discussion on this? Councilor Seal.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we do have several meetings between now and the 30th, and I really don't see a problem with addressing this at each meeting as we go forward. We could take a look at it at each meeting. So however you word the resolutions and the dates, I believe it's probably important enough for us to take a look, have Sam come every meeting and give us an update on where we're actually at. If the governor's order continues on past the 11th, and Sam has treated those drivers as the ones that need to be taken care of and probably should be off the route, and we don't have route drivers, that's an issue that we'll have to deal with. If demand does spike because the economy is opened back up, that is something we will have to deal with immediately, whether or not it's the 30th or wherever we put on that. So I would say this is probably important enough for us to look at every meeting between now and, well, in perpetuity until it's fixed.
All right, thank you, Councilor. All right, let's take
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. And this is a question for our attorney, Koistra. Since resolutions are basically non-binding anyway, is it possible to, in this case, where it states until 11:59 p.m. on May 30th, 2020, or sooner if conditions allowed, could you add the or sooner if conditions allowed? Because and which would allow us to make the changes as needed. And as I stated earlier, resolutions are essentially non-binding anyway. So is there any harm in doing that?
I will not opine as to whether there's harm in doing that. I will tell you that it's legal to do that. The other question is kind of a policy piece, so I'll leave that to the councilors to decide.
Sure.
So,
other questions? Let me finish here. Go ahead, Councilor Kiley.
I'll let. That's what I would suggest we do. So if Councilor Staley wants to make that motion to change her own amendment, that's fine with me. Or we could vote her amendment down, and then we could go with this suggested amendment.
Councilor Staley,
or
go ahead.
You could vote for my amendment too. But however, I mean, I guess if the resolution's non-binding, why are we even doing this? I mean, it could just be like a policy that you just change, or was this a resolution to start with? Is that where we're coming from? It wasn't an ordinance. I mean, how did we get here? Sam? What are we coming off of here? We're coming from one resolution to the next?
Yeah, so the first resolution was the method that we decided we needed to go through. Typically, that's how we would go through any kind of a major service change, is that we would have a resolution.
But if it's non-binding, couldn't the mayor just make a change tomorrow if he wanted to?
Well, I mean, that's not the method that we have chosen through FTA. Now, I will admit that FTA is allowing for a lot more flexibility in how we want to do things. But again, we thought this was a very important method for us to take through for the public's sake. So this is kind of a policy distinction that you want to make, and that's fine.
Yeah, so again, I just think I want to keep that. We can vote on mine and vote it down if you want. And then Kiley can do what he wants.
All right. So what we have is, go ahead, Councilor
Kiley. Here.
Go ahead, Kiley.
Actually, I would state that mine allows more flexibility, Councilor Staley. It could potentially open even sooner than the 15th. That's up to you to make your own decision, though.
Thank you.
All right, so what we have, as a reminder, there's a motion to approve this, and then the amendment on the floor is to basically just change the date on this to the 15th instead of May 30. So I think we're ready to take a vote on that amendment, so let's vote on that first here.
Councilmember Starr,
Yes.
Staley, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
No.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
All right, so that passes 7-1 with that amendment. All right, counselors, can I look for a motion to adjourn, please?
Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry, sorry, that was just the amendment. We're back, okay, sorry. I promised someone we'd be out here by 8:10, so I'm pushing it. All right, so we're back to the main motion as amended. Are there any further amendments to make on this? All right, then we'll take a vote on that, please.
Mr. Mayor, if
Yes, Tom,
I can
go
point
ahead.
something out. So we're talking about section 1, and it identifies May 30th, which the proposal is to change that to May 15th, but I want to point out that May 30th is also identified in section 2.
Well, thank you.
So, well, basically, I think the understanding, the intent of that vote was to change May 30 references to May 15.
Do we need another amendment? I'll just make a motion for the section 2, remove May 30th, 2020 to May 15th, 2020.
Second.
All right, then we'll take pretty much a procedural vote on that amendment, please.
Council members Starr,
Yes.
Staley, Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0, so now we're back to the main motion as amended twice there, and any other amendments? All right, we'll vote on that, please.
Council members Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
All right, that passes 8-0. Now I'll look for that motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn, Star.
Second.
All right, motion adjourned by Starr, seconded by Erickson. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.